Welcome back and happy Monday. It's June 30th, 2025. Today is National Social Media Day. I'm not sure what that makes the other 364 days, but you could choose to spend National Social Media Day by smiling and nodding at people in real life. They might think you're weird, but you could probably scroll back through their timelines of scrunch face, fish gapes, duck face, bathroom mirror selfies, pictures of toes at the beach. You'll probably feel better about your own weirdness. Happy Social Media Day, everybody. Now, if you're into music scenes in Alabama, you want to stick around for the second part of today's show. Our Caroline Vincent sat down with Alabama music writing heavyweights, Mary Colurso and Matt Wake, to talk about the brand spanking new Coca-Cola Amphitheater in Birmingham, the still pretty dang new Orion Amphitheater in Huntsville, and how they might affect each other and their respective cities from business and cultural perspectives. Now, that's in the second segment today. First, we'll have the hemp law in the courts, a new area code coming, and the Miss Alabama results. My name's Ike Morgan, and we're down in Alabama.
You know that feeling when someone shows up for you just when you need it most? That's what Uber is all about. Not just a ride or dinner at your door. It's how Uber helps you show up for the moments that matter. Because showing up can turn a tough day around or make a good one even better. Whatever it is, big or small, Uber is on the way. So you can be on yours. Uber, on our way.
Four businesses have asked a court to block part of Alabama's new hemp law, reports AL.com's Mike Kaysen. The four companies are Mellow Fellow Fun LLC, Tasty Haze LLC, The Humble Hemp Shack LLC, and Seedless Green LLC. Is there any question what industry those guys are in? Well, Mellow Fella is the only one of those four not based in Alabama. The part of the law in question is the banning of any form of smokable hemp and products such as gummies and drinks that contain forms of THC made by a chemical synthesis process. Now, those bans are supposed to go into effect Tuesday, and the companies claim it is not clear what exactly is banned, and that it will lead to confusion among business owners and law enforcement. The plaintiffs also claim the law is in conflict with the 2018 federal farm bill, which categorizes cannabis with a THC content of no more than 0.3% as hemp, and that with more than 0.3% as marijuana. Alabama's law also puts the Alabama Alcoholic Beverage Control Board in charge of regulating hemp-derived products and retailers. It also includes a 10% tax and sets up requirements for labeling and testing. The new Alabama area code won't get here until February, but people in the 334 can start working on changing their habits right now. The new area code will overlay with the current 334 area. It's the same thing that happened when the 659 area code was introduced in the 205 area in 2019 and when 938 joined 256 in 2010. AL.com's William Thornton reports that 334 phone customers are encouraged to start including the area code when you're dialing a number or programming numbers that you auto dial. Dialing all 10 digits will become mandatory law January 23rd. Then beginning February 23rd, some new lines will be assigned the area code 483. Area codes are added when the current area code begins to run out of available numbers. And yes, there are far more 7-digit permutations than there are people, but consider all the devices and modems that use phone numbers and businesses that use so many phone lines, temporary lines, company cell phones, and the fax machine that might still be plugged in the closet. If you have any more questions about the future of area codes, give me a call at BR549. Emma Terry won the Miss Alabama crown over the weekend, reports AL.com's Mary Colurso. Terry is from Leeds and was competing as Miss Hoover. She has a master's in accounting from UAB, and she didn't come out of nowhere. She served a stint as Miss Alabama's teen in 2021 and was the Miss Alabama runner-up the past 2 years. Her talent was a ballet on point performance to Flashdance. Contestants were also judged in evening gown, on-stage interview, and health and fitness. With the title, Terry also receives a $15,000 scholarship. Now, she's replacing as Miss Alabama the reigning Miss America, Abby Stockard. Terry now has her chance to represent Alabama in the Miss America competition in September. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Caroline will chat with Mary Colurso and Matt Wake. Y'all stay with us.
Why does the United States pay higher drug prices than other countries? Because America's the only country in the world where 340B hospitals mark up drug prices and PBM middlemen charge billions in hidden fees. Meanwhile, Americans subsidize the research and development for new cures. Other countries benefit, but don't pay their fair share. Crack down on the middlemen. End the free riding. Lower drug prices. Go to balancethescales.org to learn more. Paid for by Pharma.
My day kicks off with a refreshing Celsius energy drink, then straight to the gym. Pre-K pickup, back home to meal prep. Time for my fire station shift. One more Celsius, gotta keep the lights on. When the 3-alarm hits, I'm ready. Celsius. Live, fit, go. Grab a cold, refreshing Celsius at your local retailer or locate now at Celsius.com.
Alrighty, y'all. Thank you for listening to Down in Alabama. I'm your sometimes host, Caroline Vincent, and I'm here today with Mary Colurso and Matt Wake to talk about the state of the future of live music in Alabama. Recently, this past week, the Coca-Cola Amphitheater opened in Birmingham, downtown, and it's creating some interesting conversation about what it could mean for live acts coming to the city, as well as how it might impact live acts who have been coming to Huntsville, and just what that might look like. So, Mary, you went to opening night of the Coca-Cola Amphitheater. Just tell us what it was like.
Well, the first thing I guess I should say is that it's super nice. I mean, it's brand new, which is always a plus. It was not quite full, but almost. People seemed, well, let me just put it this way. I enjoyed the experience. Matt Rife is not always my cup of tea with his style of comedy, but that's cool. I like a little raunch sometimes. So I enjoyed the show. As far as the amphitheater and the logistics go, I mean, people seem to be really worried about parking. I didn't think that's a problem. You just have to plan ahead. People seem to be worried about the neighborhood. Everything was fine. I mean, you know, I didn't see anybody get arrested outside the place, or I mean, there were cops there. But the one thing, I mean, I had a good experience at the show. I could hear. The new screens are great. You know, it's easy to move around. I think the concessions are probably expensive, but that's everywhere. The one thing people have mentioned to me in the past couple of days, this show and Dave Matthews, is they're worried about the elevation of the seats. Like they feel like they can't see. I could see fine, but I don't know how that would. Anyway, I would say in general, I mean, if we had to go like 5 stars, I'd give it 4 to start out, and then we'll go from there.
It might not be fair to ask this question, but how does it compare to Oak Mountain?
I think it's fair. I mean, Oak Mountain was a nice venue with more seats, but it was getting old. The video screens were not great. Sometimes they didn't even have them. The pit, the third tier was just like way up in the sky. So I guess what I'm trying to say is it had strengths and weaknesses. I like the new amp. I do not bemoan the venue itself. I mean, it used to flood. It was prone to flooding, and they had a lot of problems there. So time for something new. I guess the short answer to your question is it compares favorably. The amphitheater, Oak Mountain Amphitheater had seen better days. I'm not saying it was not a decent place to go to a show, but, you know, new is nice. Matt, you know about new. New is good, right?
Yeah. New with soul and smarts is good. There's this Robert Williams painting I love called The Vanity of the New. And Robert Williams is the same guy who did the original artwork for Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction album, the one that got banned. And they replaced with the cross, famous now iconic cross. But it's essentially what it depicts is these kind of futuristic 50s, but futuristic people moving to the new flashy things and kind of so new is good when it's good, but new just being new is not. But I love that Birmingham has this, and I think it's going to be. I don't think the winner is going to be Coca-Cola Amphitheater or Orion Amphitheater. I think it's going to be music fans in Alabama who are willing to drive. Some years Orion's going to get Fish, the jam band juggernaut. This year, Coca-Cola's getting them. We got Lana Del Rey. Orion brought artists like Lana Del Rey, Jack White, Smashing Pumpkins, Robert Plant, Stevie Nicks, that never would have played Huntsville and never had before Orion. Now, are those artists now going to more often go to Coca-Cola, especially since Coca-Cola is run by Live Nation, which is the top and very powerful concert promoter, AEG being the Pepsi to their Coca-Cola, no pun intended. But, I think there might be some years like, I think tours may bounce. There's also the thing of, the business is like any other, they have the data and they don't want to oversaturate a market. So like we may get, like we got Greta Van Fleet, young, hugely popular rock band last year. And the year before I went and saw them at Legacy Arena, and both the shows were packed with young fans. It'll be interesting to me this year. Orion, I guess this is year 4. It is. This is the first one where there wasn't one of those Stevie Nicks, Jack White, like Robert Plant ones that I'm 53 and primarily a rock and metal fan. This is the first year that there wasn't like a jaw-dropping get. Now they've got stuff like Blink 182, which is a good get for a little younger demographic, and they're pop punk, but and the Orion's stepped up their hip hop bookings this year with Lil Wayne, who's also came to Birmingham this year. Master P leaning into the country thing a little more, and some other. Billy Strings is back, I think, for like he was there last year, and he's a superstar in the jam band lane these days. In 3 nights, they'll all sell out. But I think it's going to be 2026 and 27, I think, will be very interesting. Because I'll be honest, I'm jealous of Coca-Cola's stuff this year. Like Pantera, I would have been stoked for them to come to Orion. Def Leppard, same. Rod Stewart, same. Now they can have the Dave Matthews Band, but that's something else. But so I think Coca-Cola's killing it, right now. And Alabama Shakes, that was a great get. I'm not the biggest fan of them, but they're beloved. And a reunion tour, great get. Good at what they do. But I think 2026 and 27 will be very interesting. Will we see some things toggle back to Orion? Is Coca-Cola going to clean up again on, shows that of people my age who can afford these higher ticket prices, will more likely want to go to the more desirable tours? It's 26 and 27, I think, are going to be very interesting.
So, with all respect, Matt, we want all the shows in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Period. End of story. Like, we want them all here. Thank you, Huntsville. You're great, but like, not a competition. But we want them all here. Here, 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 here.
You're getting them.
And I'm not kidding, right? So, I was jealous of Jack White. I mean, those first couple of years at Orion, that opening show or opening shows. I mean, it's great. It's a great venue. I have not been there yet, but it seems very cool. And like I said, glad it's there. But we want the shows in Birmingham.
Hard agree. Because I know I've found myself not very willing to drive to Huntsville, even though it's a pretty short drive. But I'll do it to like Atlanta a lot of the time. And so I'm wondering what y'all think the likelihood is now that there's kind of these two powerhouse venues of people driving back and forth from Huntsville to Birmingham for shows.
I don't see why not. I think, I don't want to sound cheesy here, but I think a vibrant statewide music scene is going to have lots of venues all over the place, from stadiums to hole-in-the-wall bars. So having multiple arenas, amphitheaters. We've got Sand Mountain Amphitheater now too, right? So it's like mo better as long as people don't go crazy. And I mean, there were people at Matt Rife who drove from Tennessee, from South Carolina. So the way I feel like is fans will travel, and within the state, yeah. I mean, I'm going to be honest, me myself, it would have to be something really special for me to drive to Mobile from Birmingham. But 2-3 hours, 2.5 hour and a half, let's go.
I think it'll be real interesting to see, like, Luke Bryan is the first artist that's playing both Coca-Cola and Orion in the same year. And the Orion folks have told me before, at least in the past years, again, with the data, people purchasing tickets online, that they've told me that you would be shocked how few people go from Birmingham to go to Orion shows. So I think, again, part of that is maybe, I think some younger fans are more likely to travel, outside of like the sort of super fan cult, especially in the jam band world, where people go show. But I think, again, with the older fans that can afford these tickets and can afford the merch, can afford the high concessions, that a lot of these artists and tours that we've been talking about, at least bands and musically, I think there'll be some. You won't see it. It's not going to be like copy and pasted lineups, getting closer to that. But I think you'll see more than one. There's one so far this year. I think you'll see at least a couple, a few eventually that hit both in the same year.
Obviously, like you mentioned, Matt, like kind of watching like the next couple years of lineups for Coca-Cola should be really interesting. But kind of based on what they've got so far, and then acts that Orion has gotten and is kind of now getting, what do each of y'all think like the lineups might contribute or say about each city's kind of music identity?
Okay, so when I first started writing about music for the Birmingham News back in 1997, I did some columns about what was coming to town, like especially the amphitheater. And I'd be like, George Strait again? We just had him last year, Motley Crue again. I mean, everybody kept coming. And I'm like, why don't they take a chance on this person, this person, this person? And the concert promoter at the time, which later became Red Mountain Entertainment and Live Nation, were very angry with me and schooled me on, if you're a concert promoter like that, you're putting butts in the seats. And if the market has shown you it's George Strait every 2 years or every year, if it's Luke Bryan, you do that because your job is to entertain the local clientele. You're not going to pick some cool, edgy band and sell half the house. And they're like, you may think that that's how it works, but we're a business. So and Live Nation, I mean, if you look at what they're bringing, these are tried and true hard rock, country, a little bit of rap and R&B, but like they've even got like, what is it, Big Time Rush, because there's families who've gone to those shows in the past, right? And we've got classic rock, which Birmingham loves. So my humble opinion is that Live Nation, as Matt said, huge powerhouse. They want to do well at this new amphitheater. They've got a $5 million stake in it. They're managing it, which means if it sinks or swims, a lot of it's going to be there. You know, they can either celebrate or not, and people will be looking at them. So I think they have a vested interest in making it work, but they're also going to be predictable. Mainstream, big acts that we know do well here. That's what we're going to see. Anyone risky on their team who used to book for Birmingham is gone. You know, like I remember I saw Iggy Pop at 5 Point South Music Hall back in the day, and there were like 20 people there. And I talked to the person on the team who booked him, and she's like, I don't care. I wanted Iggy Pop here. We're not going to see that now. So that's a long-winded way of saying I think what we're going to see is butts in the seats. Country, classic rock, you know. Anyway, metal, you know. Matt, what do you think? Does that make sense?
It's perfect sense. It's business is business, and exactly the promoters, and also it's who they can bring into that venue. And I have been told that Alabama, some artists are a little reluctant to come to Alabama, you know, because of some negative stereotypes. Now, I love it here, and I know a lot of smart, good people, but there are certain artists that in genres and maybe whatever that they're a little hesitant to add Alabama.
Yeah, do you think, because I've certainly seen plenty of artists skip over Alabama entirely, and, you know, the closest they come is Nashville or Atlanta or something. I can't help but wonder if, especially Mary, to your point, as downtown Birmingham is going to get a lot of mainstream acts, if those artists who usually skip might be a little more drawn than they used to be, you know.
My understanding is that the venue counts. Like, in other words, when they redid the arena, the fact that it was newer and had more amenities and stuff, more artists would be inclined, you know. It's not like, I mean, the Alabama Theater, the backstage is like a dungeon, apparently. And so I remember Harry Connick Jr. saying from the stage, you know, what's with this backstage? What's with my... Anyway, so I think the newness, niceness, amenities are going to matter. But I also think if someone's reluctant to come based on politics, they're not coming. You know, unless it's a business, like, in other words, business is the primary decision-making factor. They're not taking a stand on this, that, or the other. That said, you know, Jason Isbell has some pretty specific politics. Of course, he's from Alabama, so he's coming, you know? Mm-hmm. So anyway, you know, we'll see. That's the TLDR answer? We'll see.
For sure.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of somebody who would absolutely positively not come for whatever reason. Matt, can you think of anybody?
Well, I can tell you this, you know, I was talking more about maybe, Neil Young played Orion Amphitheater.
Yeah.
You know, and he's another one. Would he have ever freaking played Huntsville before? No way. And, you know, granted, he played Tuscaloosa Amphitheater a few years back. It was great with the Alabama Shakes opening. But I also think, you know, you talk about why Nashville and Atlanta get a lot of the big tours is, frankly, they have much bigger arenas.
Right.
So there's no risk of weather, and you can, instead of playing both Birmingham and Huntsville, if you have an artist that can fill up that size of arena, like 20K plus, people will come from Huntsville and Birmingham to see Guns N' Roses, or to see U2, or to, you know, Taylor Swift, obviously, you know. So the logistics, it's cheaper to go to one place to the next place instead of going here,
right.
do all the hotel. Yeah. So But the amphitheater thing, I'll be interested to see how Coca-Cola does this, because Orion made it a real emphasis to make it feel like of North Alabama. They opened with that first waltz opening concert that had Isbell, had the Truckers, had Mavis Staples, who has history in Muscle Shoals, had Brittany Howard. It was like, it had Waxahachie, who's from Birmingham, not North Alabama, but it made it a real emphasis, like, of creating a place. Like, it's not just a new venue, and they have a ton of events, like local, that are free, like local music, local food, and some of them are in the arena, and some are on the kind of cool, I guess you'd call campus outside of it, and in it. So people that can't afford, they have indie, like local music festivals there. Like the best one here is Sluice Music Festival, which is really good underground. The creme de, like, if you wanted to hear all the best young underground Huntsville area bands, go to Sluice Fest, and it's under the dome, they call it, at Orion. And so I'll be interested to see how much Coca-Cola makes that venue feel like a specific place and not purely a nice new venue. But and I'm sure they will, but I have to give Orion props for that, because people who couldn't afford to go to the Sunday shows, or the young hipster kids in their 20s and stuff, young 20s, or the teenagers who, a lot of, once they're out of the home and paying their own bills and all, but they could still come to Orion events, and so they got familiar with it, felt like theirs. It's only been here 4 years, but it seems like it's been here 10.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see that as well, especially, I mean, Coca-Cola being in the Uptown area, where it feels kind of a lot of just new. How they can kind of put a stake in the Birmingham identity part of it.
Well, one thing that's interesting, I think, to that point, when you go there, you're right in the middle of a neighborhood. I mean, it's not like Oak Mountain, you had this big parking lot all around the commercial district, okay? Here, it's like you go to see the Boston Red Sox at Fenway. I mean, right? There's a neighborhood right there, yeah. Right? So this is a neighborhood amphitheater. So, example, I was not there for Dave Matthews Band, and I'm not sure about Fish yet, but, like, where's the Village going to set up for that? Where are the fans going to make grilled cheese? And where are they going to do that? Because there's no huge parking area right there. They'll have to make other figure out where it's going to be. The vibe will be different. So one thing about this new amphitheater is they're talking about it being a driver for business in the Druid Hills North Side area. So what they're promising is, you ain't seen nothing yet. We're going to develop around here. It's going to be this. It's going to be this. It's going to be this. Good. Cool. Maybe that will help to create some of an identity for the amphitheater. And of course, whatever events they're going to do. But, like, I'm just thinking of stuff they had at Oak Mountain. It was like a fair. Like, it was like a traveling state fair kind of thing. I don't think they were, well, maybe in the old days with the X, when they would have X Fest and some stuff like that. But it will, let's put it this way. Let's challenge Live Nation and the team to create a space that says Birmingham, this neighborhood, like, create some soul as opposed to something brand spanking new and generic.
And that actually brings me to another question I wanted to ask was, I guess, Matt, firstly, like, how have you seen the Orion just impact Huntsville economically? And then, Mary, how do you anticipate Coca-Cola impacting Birmingham economically?
Good question. Well, there are a couple of layers to that for Orion in Huntsville. One is Huntsville, heretofore, Rocket City, Space Camp, NASA, all that stuff. After Orion opened, Huntsville had an article in Rolling Stone magazine, and it was anchored on Orion but touched on other aspects of music in Huntsville, venues and that kind of thing. So it elevated things. It made for the first time ever made Huntsville music. It put it in the news beyond really Huntsville, I think. And economically, I mean, I think if you're a kid getting out of college, you love to go to concerts, and you have lived in Huntsville, and you maybe once a month drove to Birmingham or Nashville or Atlanta, and then the Orion comes along, you don't have to drive anymore. Where in the past, you might have, once you got some experience and could get a job in Atlanta or Birmingham or Atlanta, and live music's a passion, or that quality of life and wanting to do cool stuff on a regular basis, I think a lot of those people moved. I was one of them. I think it's been an asset, and it's helped Huntsville get other things. Did they get South Star, the music festival that debuted last year with a lot of big acts? It was 90s themed, but did they get a music festival of that level with Gwen Stefani and before they broke up, Jane's Addiction? Some really strong bookings. Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine never would have freaking played Huntsville, and they wouldn't have gotten the South Star. But here's the complication with that: radius clauses. Big festivals have radius clauses that they have their artists sign. You cannot play within X number of miles, within X number, Y number of months of playing this festival. So I'm pretty sure some of those South Star bigger acts were in play to come to Orion, and then it didn't work out because of the radius clauses. So, but yeah, a huge economic impact, a source of pride, and there's the whole thing of I think, and that you've seen stuff like the Huntsville Music Office open. Like, there's a dude, he's a good guy, Matt Mandrella, making things happen for local music. They have an initiative where they will pay local Huntsville artists and bands to tour. They'll give them a stipend. A lot of cool stuff like that. Success breeds success. When the Yankees win a World Series, you see a lot more Yankees hats. When Auburn has a good year, you see a lot more. They come out of the woodwork. I mean, you're always going to have your hardcores, but you sure see them a lot more on a good year, after a good year, than after a crummy year. So, good economic impact and strong cultural impact.
So, my answer to that question, I'm just going to be bluntly honest here. I don't know.
Sure.
I mean, I have no idea. They're promising that the amphitheater, $46 million amphitheater, will be a driver for business opportunity, commerce, building. The promise is that it will turn this area into sort of a high-powered entertainment district and therefore generate money, bring in lots of audience. So city, state, county officials, the BJCC, the mayor, people from Coca-Cola. I mean, this is what they're all. Scott Register, one of our, Birmingham Mountain Radio dude who everybody loves and listens to. Scott's like, yes, it's going to be great for Birmingham. So when Scott says it, I'm like, okay, okay. So I hope so, but I don't know. I mean, we've had projects, I don't want this one to fail. I don't want this one to, but you never know. So anyway, I guess what I'll say is Scott says it will. So if Reg says so, I'm like, okay, that's what's happening.
I'm fully with you. I will believe anything Reg tells me.
One footnote on the impact of Orion here in Huntsville. The same music office that opened, it's a branch of the city government now, and has a full-time employee that I mentioned, Matt Mandrell. But in addition to paying local artists who tour, they have to tour a certain amount of shows, a certain amount of distance away. They also pay artists to relocate here.
Oh, interesting.
So it's created a, shield your ears from the buzzword, but musical ecosystem
Sure, yeah.
that did not exist. And now look, and do I think some people that, would have, young musicians, Huntsville's, and I always say this and people are tired of hearing it. Huntsville has never had not one famous single artist or band. Not one. They have had people who have contributed to lots of artists who've contributed to bands that have been on a national level or played on records, but there's not one, we don't have an Alabama Shakes. They're Athens.
Right.
We don't have, that. So do I think that people are going to move in flocks from Nashville to Huntsville as a ripple effect from Orion Amphitheater? If Nashville gets crazy expensive, maybe. Some trickle, but at the very least, it's keeping the more talented young musicians here because it's a cooler place to be a musician in, and there's more opportunities, and there's more support, and to have your best shot and to be better appreciated. But that's a bit of a jag I went on, but just a ripple of it. That wouldn't have happened without Orion.
Yeah, as a fan of Birmingham music, I certainly hope to see the same thing happen here. But that's so interesting about Huntsville specifically, because I guess, yeah, it's not like all of North Alabama is one place. Like people coming specifically from Huntsville would be a very cool thing to see and something we haven't seen before. And I just always want more cool bands from Birmingham, personally. Well, thank you all so much for joining us for this special segment for Down in Alabama. This was great to talk to y'all. Had a lot of fun. And can't wait to hear more about the concert and music scene in Birmingham and Huntsville.
Hey, thank you all for doing that. Caroline, Mary, and Matt, we enjoyed it. Thanks, everybody out there, for listening to us. We're going to be back here bright and early in the morning, as always. Come by and see what we're doing anytime you want to on the internet at al.com.